Are the Chicago Bulls about to transform from NBA purgatory dwellers into legitimate contenders, or are they sprinting headfirst toward the most catastrophic front office disaster since the Derrick Rose injury curse began? Because right now, with just 15 days until the February 6th trade deadline, Executive VP Arturas Karnisovas is juggling two completely opposite futures, and whichever one he drops could define this franchise for the next decade. Let's cut through the noise and get to the nuclear core of this situation. Zion Williamson versus Yves Missi. On one side, you've got a 24-year-old former #1 overall pick who was supposed to be the next Shaq-LeBron hybrid, but has instead become the NBA's most expensive medical experiment, playing just 114 games over 4 seasons while his conditioning becomes a league-wide punchline. On the other side, there's a 20-year-old Cameroonian center with elite defensive upside, a rookie-scale contract, and the kind of developmental trajectory that makes analytics departments salivate, but who won't sell a single extra ticket at the United Center. Here's what should absolutely terrify Bulls fans. According to Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times, these aren't casual exploratory conversations. Karnisovas is actively negotiating on both fronts, which means Chicago is closer to pulling one of these triggers than the organization wants to publicly admit. And with 5, count them, 5 key rotation players hitting unrestricted free agency this summer, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and Jalen Smith, doing nothing isn't just conservative, it's organizational suicide. The Bulls aren't facing a simple trade deadline decision. They're staring down an existential crisis that will either resurrect this franchise from a decade of mediocrity or cement their status as the Eastern Conference's most irrelevant playoff pretender. And the clock is ticking louder than the ghost of Michael Jordan screaming, "What are you waiting for?" from his Charlotte Hornets owner's box. Let's dissect the Zion Williamson proposition with the cold, analytical precision it deserves, because this isn't just about basketball talent, it's about organizational risk tolerance and whether Chicago has finally developed the courage to escape their comfort zone of perpetual adequacy when healthy. And yes, those two words are doing Herculean heavy lifting. Zion is arguably the most physically dominant interior force since prime Shaquille O'Neal. We're talking about a 6 feet 6 inches power forward who moves like a point guard, finishes at the rim with 70% efficiency, and generates gravitational pull that warps entire defensive schemes. His rookie season showcased transcendent glimpses, 22.5 points per game on 58% shooting, highlight reel dunks that broke the internet, and an infectious joy that reminded everyone why they fell in love with basketball. But here's the gut-wrenching reality that keeps New Orleans executives awake at night. Zion has averaged barely 28 games per season over 4 years. Foot injuries, hamstring strains, knee soreness. His medical chart reads like an orthopedic surgeon's greatest hits compilation. This season, he's posting career lows across virtually every meaningful metric, while his conditioning has become whispered controversy throughout league circles. Brett Siegel of Clutch Points dropped crucial intelligence that framed Chicago's entire strategic calculus. Zion represents the ideal buy low candidate for a team drowning in expiring contracts. Here's the financial engineering that makes this theoretically possible. The Bulls could package multiple expiring deals, Vucevic's $20 million, Williams' $7.9 million, Smith's $5 million, to match Zion's $33 million salary without surrendering significant draft capital. It's salary cap Tetris at its finest, allowing Chicago to swing for a former #1 pick without gutting their future asset collection. The Pelicans, desperate to escape a contract that's become an albatross, might actually accept less than market value just to reset their financial flexibility. New Orleans already surrendered an unprotected first-round pick to Atlanta in a previous deal, a pick that could become a top 5 lottery selection if their season continues spiraling. That mistake is haunting their front office, making every remaining asset suddenly precious. But wait, there's a completely different chess piece on this board that might actually represent the smarter, unsexy move that separates championship organizations from headline chasers. Yves Missi, the 20-year-old center from Cameroon, represents everything modern NBA teams covet. Length, 7 feet 2 inches wingspan, mobility, defensive instincts, and most importantly, cost control. Selected 21st overall in the 2024 draft, Missi flashed legitimate potential as a rookie, averaging 26.8 minutes, while showcasing elite rim-running ability and shot-blocking timing that scouts compared favorably to Clint Capella's early development. This season, his minutes have mysteriously cratered to just 18.6 per game. Not because he's regressed, but because New Orleans' chaotic rotation and injury-depleted roster have created inconsistent opportunities. According to Cowley's reporting, the Pelicans are willing to trade him, but they're not giving him away. Translation: we know he's valuable, we know you want him, and we're going to extract maximum compensation or keep developing him ourselves. The Bulls' reported reluctance to surrender draft assets creates a negotiating stalemate that's becoming increasingly difficult to resolve. Chicago wants Missi's upside without paying Missi's price. They want Zion's star power without accepting Zion's injury risk. They want to compete now while preserving future flexibility. In other words, they want everything while risking nothing, a strategy guaranteed to produce exactly what it has for years: mediocrity punctuated by first-round playoff exits and lottery disappointments. Let's examine the competitive landscape that makes this decision even more agonizing. Because context matters when you're potentially betting your franchise's entire future. If Chicago somehow acquires Zion and he rediscovers even 80% of his rookie year form, they instantly vault into Eastern Conference relevance. Pair him with a hopefully healthy Lonzo Ball, another injury-prone gamble that's defined Chicago's recent history, add the emerging backcourt of White and Dosunmu, and suddenly you've got an athletic, transition-based identity that could terrorize opponents. The United Center would explode with energy not felt since the Derrick Rose era. Ticket sales would skyrocket. National television games would multiply. The Bulls would matter again. But if Zion's body betrays him, if those feet that have already undergone multiple surgeries can't support his frame, if the hamstrings that have repeatedly strained can't handle NBA intensity, Chicago becomes the league's cautionary tale. They'd be the franchise that confused desperation with strategy, that mistook hope for analysis, that gambled their financial flexibility on damaged goods. And with their current core potentially walking in free agency, they'd face a complete rebuild with zero assets and a max contract anchoring them to the ocean floor. The Missi alternative presents a completely different risk-reward profile. He's the developmental project that could anchor your defense for a decade on a rookie-scale contract. He's the type of player who doesn't move the needle immediately, but becomes invaluable 3 years from now when he's protecting the rim at an all-defense level while earning $4 million annually. He's the smart, unsexy move that analytics departments love and casual fans ignore, until suddenly he's the reason you're winning playoff series because your defense is suffocating opponents in the paint. So, where does this Byzantine negotiation actually land as the deadline clock ticks down with merciless precision? The most probable outcome, and this should infuriate every Bulls fan who's suffered through years of organizational timidity, is that Chicago walks away from both deals. Karnisovas will hold a press conference citing asset protection and long-term flexibility, which are just corporate euphemisms for "we were too scared to commit." The Pelicans will retain Missi, because no team will meet their inflated asking price, and Zion will remain in New Orleans, his once limitless potential slowly evaporating with each missed game and conditioning controversy. But here's what makes this story absolutely riveting despite the likely anticlimax, the possibility that someone finally blinks. If Chicago actually pulls the trigger on Zion, it would represent the boldest, most franchise-defining move since they traded for Nikola Vucevic in 2021, except with exponentially higher stakes. They'd be betting their entire organizational future on the rehabilitation of a broken superstar, wagering that a change of scenery, different training staff, and reduced media pressure could unlock the player everyone thought he'd become. It's either visionary or delusional, and we won't know which until years from now. The brutal truth nobody in the Bulls' front office wants to acknowledge: doing nothing is actually the riskiest move of all. With 5 rotation players potentially leaving this summer, standing pat means accepting a complete roster implosion without any plan to replace that talent. It means another season of 35 to 40 wins, another first-round playoff exit or play-in tournament disappointment, another year of watching the Celtics, Bucks, and Cavaliers compete for championships while Chicago fights for relevance. 15 days remain until the February 6th deadline. 15 days for Arturas Karnisovas to decide if he's a risk-taker or a caretaker. 15 days for the Bulls to choose between Zion's explosive upside, Missi's developmental promise, or the soul-crushing safety of an action. What's your take on this impossible decision? Should the Bulls roll the dice on Zion's superstar potential despite the terrifying injury history, or should they play the long game with Yves Missi's defensive upside? Drop your hottest take in the comments below. I genuinely want to know if you think Chicago finally shows some organizational courage or plays it safe one more time. And if this breakdown got you fired up, smash that like button, because these next 2 weeks are going to be absolutely wild.